Welcome to the truth. It's the Libertarian Links webcast.
Move on to more serious stuff, because it has been a huge week for Syria and for the news coming out of Syria. The first thing I want to talk about is the Germans. Syria chemical weapons attack not ordered by Assad, German press. Now, if you go back and watch the second or third episode of Libertarian Links, I talked about this. I said that there was some intelligence that was intercepted that showed that Assad had no idea what was going on, that he was trying to figure out who had carried out the attack, but the intelligence hadn't been analyzed yet, and I hadn't heard that much about it. Now we've got it right here, coming out of Germany, coming out of The Guardian, reported by The Guardian, that Assad didn't know who launched the attack. Assad did not order Syria chemical weapons attack, says German press. Bildam Sonntag cites high-level German surveillance source suggesting Syrian president was not personally behind the attacks. President Bashar al-Assad did not personally order last month's chemical weapons attack near Damascus that has triggered calls for U.S. military intervention, and blocked numerous requests from his military commanders to use chemical weapons against regime opponents in recent months, the German newspaper reported, citing unidentified high-level national security sources. So, the intelligence findings were based on phone calls intercepted by a German surveillance ship operated by the BND, the German intelligence service, deployed off the Syrian coast. The intercepted communication suggests Assad, who is accused of war crimes by the West, included by Foreign Secretary William Hague, was not himself involved in last month's attack or in other instances when government forces have allegedly used chemical weapons. Boom! They're actually telling us what the intelligence is, how they collected it, and what it said, which is not what the people who are saying Assad did it are claiming. They're not giving us any intelligence. They're not saying any of what they've collected. These guys are saying, this is how we got it, this is what we got, and this is what it said. Obama's saying, look at the pictures of the people who are in hospitals, and then you see clearly that Assad attacked his people. Which brings up another point. Doctors Without Borders. It's a French, that's what we call it, but there's another name in French, and I don't know how to pronounce it. They reported that they treated over 3,000 people right immediately following the gas attack, and that about 350 of them died, which is very different than the number we're getting out of the Obama administration. They said they tested hair samples to see if sarin was used. The tests were inconclusive. There was a smell associated with the gas that was foul. Sarin chemical weapons grade gas does not have a smell. Now, the junk cooked up in the kitchens by rebels and Al-Qaeda does stink. But the stuff that is used by governments and professionally made does not smell. So Doctors Without Borders says, we treated less people than they're saying, we couldn't confirm it was sarin, and it smelled bad. This next story, it blew my mind when I first saw it. Absolutely blew my mind. I wrote on here, now we know why McCain carrying Obama's story on the Syrian rebels made sense. Get ready for this one. Pro-Syrian opposition analyst fired for lying on resume. She's fired for lying about her credentials. Now, her name was Obegi, Elizabeth Obegi. A scholar whose writings on Syria were touted by top U.S. officials in making the case for a Syria strike has been fired by the Institute for the Study of War for allegedly lying about her education credentials. She lied and said she had a PhD from Georgetown, and that wasn't true. The institute where she had worked as a senior analyst on Wednesday posted a terse statement on its website claiming she also misled the organization about having a PhD. Wow, so she lied about more than just having a PhD. Now, this woman was actually, her name and her work was cited by John McCain during the debate on the Senate hearings about whether action in Syria was needed, about whether or not we should support the rebels. Both Senator John McCain and Secretary of State John Kerry cited her article during congressional hearings. McCain read from the piece, describing it as an important op-ed by Dr. Elizabeth O'Baggy. Kerry cited it the next day while appearing before a House committee, urging lawmakers to read it. On August 30th, she wrote a piece that claims that the opposition, and this is the piece that they're talking about, contrary to many media accounts, this is what she wrote, the war in Syria is not being waged entirely or even predominantly by dangerous Islamists or Al-Qaeda diehards, she wrote. She called for a comprehensive strategy to destroy Assad's military capability and boost the opposition. So, somehow, this woman weasels her way in. She defrauds her way in. She lies and gets a position to where she can tell our government that the Syrian opposition is not Al-Qaeda, to boost support for an attack on Assad. And it's come out now that she actually has ties to jihad. This woman is a mole. This woman is a plant. This woman is a secret agent. And she got all the way to the top, to the point where our government is making decisions based on her opinions. And we find out that she's a liar. Now, these are the people that want us to take their word to go to war in Syria. That wanted us to go to war in Syria in their word. They have been fooled by this woman. This is something out of a movie. I can't even believe this. And it's all over the news. It's crazy. If you look at the media, there's a lot of stories out there now. There's a lot of things coming out. If you look at all the leaks, Edward Snowden, and all the documents that he took when he was at the Booz Allen that he stole, and then he began to leak things out about the NSA. The alternative media is really turning it up, especially when you look at every time they make a move now, it's reported across the media on sites like Drudge Report and InfoWars and WorldNet Daily, and even some of the stories eventually get picked up on Fox News and CNN that they're allowed to run with. And my point is this. The last few times that there's been these huge scandals, these huge events, the news has gotten out there and the people have won out. So someone posted this the other day, and I thought it was really interesting to read. It's signs that the global elite are losing control. Karma is coming for the elite in a big way as the powers that be plan for their war in Syria. Signs are emerging that the rule over humanity is rapidly diminishing. And so, here's the number one sign that the global elite are losing control. Official lies are no longer effective. The lies that they tell simply don't work anymore. There was a time when official lies, especially about war and peace, were believed. But after all, how evil would it be to lie about such things? Because after all, how evil would it be to lie about such things? Generally, people want to believe that they are being told the truth when life and death is at stake. The boy who cried wolf cried one too many times. Even if they told the truth at some point, few would believe them. It's true. We're not believing the official story anymore. We're questioning it. We're looking for our own answers. So number one is true. The official lies are no longer effective. Number two. No confidence in politics. U.S. politicians have a paltry approval rating. Trust in the government is at an all-time low here and around the world. Mainstream polls show only 10% of the public has confidence in Congress. In other words, 90% don't believe them that they are competent to govern. Number three, no confidence in the media. Most recent polls show that 70% of the population no longer trust corporate TV news. Is it any wonder why the establishment media failed to sell the lies about the alleged Syria chemical event? With all their monopoly over the airwaves, they can no longer claim that black is white simply because officialdom says so. Now, this is a good point. It's been reported over and over again that people are only allowed to run with the stories that the corporate owners allow them to. Which means if the government says to the corporate owners, you don't run with this story, the story is not reported. Number 4 is bankers rejected. Hungary recently became the first country to follow in Iceland's lead by shedding international bankers from the IMF and is considering pursuing prosecution of past prime ministers who enslaved the people with debt. Now, this is part of the reason we had the 2008 financial crisis, was to cause nations to get into such debt that the bankers would be able to pull strings. Iceland knew what they were doing and had the bankers arrested. And now Hungary is following in suit. We should definitely be thinking about that here. Number 6 is mutiny among soldiers. Finally, soldiers who are outlawed for making political statements are steadily speaking out against U.S. military adventurism. As Einstein famously said, the pioneers of a warless world are the young men and women who refuse military service. We saw that with the Syria thing. Remember all the pictures? I won't fight for Al-Qaeda. Militarized police state. One of the darkest signs that the elite are losing control and their grip on power is the construction of a militarized police state, specifically trained to combat civil and domestic unrest. Local cops with tanks and other combat gear are working with the feds at fusion centers. Active Army units are on American soil for the first time in history. The NSA spy grid is being used by the IRS and the DEA. The elimination of due process for Americans under the NDAA are just some of the tyrannical moves made to secure the elite criminals from public backlash. They close their fists tighter as we get closer and closer to breaking their grip. They're clearly scared, and they should be given what they've done to the American people in the Constitution. Number 8, serious secession movements everywhere. A state seceding from a larger political entity used to be an ultra-fringe concept. Until now. In America, secession movements are winning over in the public parts of Colorado and California. I know this very well. Right up here in Northern California, there has been talk about seceding and forming a new state called the state of Jefferson. I mean, it's serious. There's actually meetings of people gathering together to talk about separating ourselves. And it's happening across the country. It's unbelievable. In Europe, secessionist movements are happening in Spain and Scotland, as well as several EU nations flirting with the idea of dropping out of the euro, decentralization, entropy. So, yeah, it's happening. It's here. I've seen it firsthand. And in Europe, there's constant talk. The Eurosceptics want out of the euro. They see the euro prison and what they've got them trapped in. Look at what's happening in Greece and Spain and Italy. They're trapped in the prison of the euro. And finally, as we see all of these things happening, it's evidence that the population is waking up to the truth. It's evidence that we are on to them and that they are tightening their grip. They are seeing that they're losing control and they're growing. Diane Fienstien was talking about over the weekend how she wants legitimate journalists to be protected under the law, which means the ones that are employed by the corporate news entities, the ones that are government approved, deserve protection under the law and that be able to protect their sources. But everybody else has no protection. If you receive a leaked document and you're not one of these corporate entities, you don't work for them, you have to reveal your source, and you can go to prison for issuing that leaked document. because the alternative media is making such a huge difference. They want to stop it. They want to clamp down. They're getting desperate. They're getting scared. They want to stop us. They see the effect that it's having. They're not getting away with their plans. They're not able to do the things they want to do because people are waking up.